Hello and welcome to episode 10 of this Let's Play Space Age series. In the last episode we built this beautiful beast on Fulgora. So we built a whole load of recycling machines to deal with the scrap and a whole lot of conveyor belts to deal with that scrap, and then we built a whole lot of factory units from island to island, you know, just jumping our way. Wherever there was land we used it, building all of the bits and pieces that we needed in order to get to the end point, which is a small number of very, very crucial things. Science, which we're not currently got turned on, that's turned off so that we can put all of the resources that this factory is making into legendary tier 3 quality modules, EM plants and recyclers. And all of that took place in the last episode, and we've got a potential pretty big upgrade to make to this factory, but we can't do it until we've got all of the legendary buildings that this thing is going to, not going to, but it's currently making them, just not very quick, you know. They're legendary things. They're going to take a long time to make, regardless of what size factory that you throw at it. So we need to go and waste some time. It's not the first time on this run that we've had to go and do this. I mean, waste time, it's a relative concept, isn't it? We need to go to Gleba at some point. We may as well do it now whilst we've got time to burn. So, that is the plan for this episode. We're going to go to Gleba and we're going to learn. I have no idea about Gleba. Not a clue. So we're going to run over to our starter factory. So I haven't built any rocket silos in this part of the base yet. So all of my rocket silos are over in my starter factory. We need to run over there, jump in a rocket, go to Gleba, and let's get messy. So I came to Gleba with a plan, had a plan. I've been thinking about it for a while. Since we were last here, I've been thinking about how I was going to approach this when I did finally come to building this monster, whatever it was going to be. And that plan is now gone. It's I think it was a bad plan. The plan. I mean, the plan was to build like a small everything factory that did everything, and then just tile and copy it. But I kind of came back to Gleba, moved the camera, got myself set up, ready to build. And I was like, if I do that, that's really what I've built here already. Like, this is an everything factory, and it's got problems. So, the idea of just using the same philosophy again, not to mention that we would have to include quality in this, and that's going to make it more big and more difficult. So, change of plan. Whilst I've been thinking about this over the last however many hours, there were two kind of competing plans. And the first one is the one that I've talked about, which is the all-in-one everything mini thing that was bad. That's probably would be bad. Maybe someone else might be able to achieve it. I don't think, not for me. The plan B was to build blocks dedicated to each individual process. So, the idea being, if we don't want to crack open the fruits in one location, if we were doing a small mini factory, then it would make sense to crack open all of the fruits in one location and then shift them around the base. But if we're doing an all-in-one block, if we've got a big base, if that's what we are, then we need to crack those fruits within the same footprint of the thing that's using those cracked fruits. Because, the cracked fruits and the nutrients are the time-critical items. They're the things that spoil the quickest. So, if it's not possible for me to build a small mini everything factory, then I need to build a big block which deals with one particular process. And that's kind of what I've done. And the thing is, because I've been thinking about it for so long, but thinking about a different plan, I didn't really know where to start with this one. So I just started with the obvious thing, which was bioflux. We're going to need a lot of this stuff. And getting my head around how it was going to work, how things tied together, this is probably a good place to start. It's complicated enough, but not too complicated. Anyway, so we've got all of the fruit cracking on the right-hand side, and then we've got the bioflux on the left-hand side. We've also got quality involved, so we're going to put quality modules in this fruit cracking process. That's going to spit out varying different qualities of fruits. That's going to go to different bioflux processes that we got here for the different qualities. We've got all of that in here. Now, with regards to the nutrients, because they're the other thing that can spoil quickly, what I want, I had this plan. It was planned to do with the first plan, the all-in-everything mini factory, but it satisfies both. What I want to do is I want to daisy chain the bioflux to nutrient process. So I want one process to take bioflux and nutrients from somewhere else, make nutrients, and send that to the next process in the daisy chain. So that's what these kind of processes here are, kind of in the middle and around the edge. These are going to take the nutrients that are coming from the previous process in the daisy chain. It's going to pick up some bioflux from this loop. This isn't entirely finished yet. It's going to pick up some bioflux from this loop, and it's going to feed nutrients not only into the process, but also to the next step in the chain. And then this one will do the same. It will feed nutrients into the process, next one in the chain. Nutrients are the thing that's gone wrong on that first factory that I built. So I think this is a good way. If I can get all of the circuit networks right so that it's doing the job that I want it to do, then this should be a really good way of achieving that without keeping these length of belts with the nutrients on them in the first place, keeping them short. I feel like this is a good plan. Anyway, bioflux, obviously, the thing is about bioflux, we need a lot of it. Those pentapod eggs, particularly the legendary ones. We're going to need a lot of legendary bioflux to keep the pentapod eggs is obviously an infinite process. So as long as we can keep a supply of the right quality of bioflux for the right qualities of eggs, then they will be infinite. But we have to provide the right quality of bioflux, and the consequences if we don't is that they hatch and cause trouble. But, trouble I don't really want. I'm going to try and prevent it. There's going to be lots of turrets and stuff, but we are talking about legendary pentapod eggs. The dangers are clear. So bioflux, I don't know how many blocks of these I'm going to need. I don't know, 4, 8, 12, I don't know, a lot of them, I think. But anyway, once we got Bioflux sorted, I was like, okay, what's the most complicated thing that I can take on? And that's obviously bacteria. So we're approaching this with the same kind of philosophy. We've got our nutrient lanes in the middle and along the edges, so these should daisy chain together. These I have actually set up with some circuit networks. I'm hoping this will work. We'll see in the fullness of time. We're also cracking open the fruit in this same block. So we crack open the jelly nuts to get the jelly. We then make, this is the seed bacteria. So I suppose this portion on the right is really just the starting mechanism. This will feed the seed bacteria to the main blocks. I've set these all up with chests, so hopefully at some point, well, I haven't quite done it yet, but at some point in time, I'm going to report the contents of all these chests back to that seed process and stop it when there's bacteria in all of these chests. Because once we've got this thing going, we don't need that seed bacteria. It's self-fulfilling in some respects, in a lot of respects, as long as we provide it with bioflux. All caveats all apply, and nutrients and everything else. This whole experience on Gleba is tenuous. Anyway, we've got quality in here too. Now, the potential for quality with this bacteria stuff is, infinite legendary iron. The potential. I am very heavily skeptical whether it be reliable, because once again, we're relying on legendary bioflux, and priority-wise, that legendary bioflux really needs to go to the pentapod eggs first before it comes here. So, we're probably going to produce some legendary bacteria. That legendary bacteria is going to find its way into the boxes. Is that going to be sustainable? Are we going to be able to sustain it for a long period of time? I am highly, highly skeptical. But obviously the potential is there for this stuff, for infinite legendary iron. It's very, very appealing. It can't be completely ignored. There's a part of me that feels like at some point in time I'm going to build a different block that maybe tries to just do legendary iron bacteria. So I essentially have the same process that I've got here, but just scrap everything else other than the legendary. Try and feed a great bank of legendary biochambers as opposed to just 4 of them. But this bacteria is like a mirage. It is there, but it can disappear very quickly. I don't know, just skeptical as to how fully reliable. It's an experiment. It's an experiment. All I've really done is tried to balance the amount of units. I've tried to deal with it the same way I've dealt with quality in other places, which, I've got a certain amount of units. We're going to put a certain amount of quality in those units. We can expect a certain amount of quality coming out. I kind of have a good feel on how to deal with those quantities, and I've just approached it in the same way that I've dealt with it on Vulcanus and Fulgora. It's not necessarily the right approach because we've got potential of infinite bacteria, I'm just building one thing at a time. I'm building what I know. I'm not pushing myself. I'm not trying to push my luck. I'm not getting greedy. Just trying to keep things simple. I am worried about Gleba. Worried about it. Even though we're building already and I'm kind of getting some confidence, I'm still worried. Anyway, next steps. What we need to do is set up the train stations for this stuff. I'm going to just try and build them in here, I think. This block for bioflux, I think that's going to have to move depending on the geometries, everything else, depending on how things line up. It might rotate. I don't know. I haven't really figured that out yet. The important bit at the moment, I think, is this. And this also isn't the full block. You see, we've got these 2 blocks. We've got this northern half and this southern half. We need another one of these northern halves reflected and popped on the southern half. This iron, I've kind of taken it a little bit. I've taken it big. Anyway, we're going to build this with the train stations, maybe some paths, and then we're going to copy whatever we've got over here on the other side, identical, just to deal with the copper. And then we've got to deal with all the other things, rocket fuel, plastic, lube, all the other carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is going to need to be pretty serious. We're going to need some legendary of that too. Oh. So much to do and so much to learn. So the plan is coming together. It's coming together by bits and pieces. You know, I'm building a part of a factory, and then I'm building another part of the factory, and then another part of the factory. I'm looking at them and thinking, how do I arrange those chunks? You know, it's actually quite difficult to arrange and figure in your mind, you know, where to put biochambers and inserters. But once you've got a big block of factory, you know, and you're dealing with 4 big chunks, it's much easier to arrange them. And that's kind of the approach that I've used here. It's not worked out perfectly. We've kind of found ourselves... It's not a big problem. This is a problem for my vanity more than anything else. But we've got kind of like these kind of offset paths where they don't line up with each other. And I don't know how I'm going to fix these sorts of issues now or in the future, to be honest. You know, this makes me very unhappy, this kink in the path. But this it's not just Gleba. This whole space age experience, to be honest, you know, quality and Gleba individually and quality. Anyway, the problem is this: is that I take pride in trying to squeeze these factories into certain size spaces. So when I build a grid on a factory, like I like to squeeze in the factory into that grid, that box that I've made for myself, and that means that paths line up. I don't get annoyed with things, but quality and Gleba individually, and then the two together, it just means I've got like no control over the size of these blocks. You know, the design of these individual, all of these spaces in here, it's so specific that manipulating it is just impossible. You know, you build it is the size that it is. There's no negotiating with it. Oh, wait a second, what's happened here then? Funny what you spot when you walk around. No, not there. There. So I'm kind of forced into a position where nothing's going to line up. If I'm dealing with quality and Gleba particularly, you know, I think on Vulcanus, I think I did okay with quality and keeping my grids lined up. Fulgora, we were kind of hamstrung a little bit by islands. But so anyway, the idea that I don't know how to bring it all round. I don't know how I'm going to fix these path issues going forward. This is going to be a thing now. I mean, what I've actually done is I've kind of it's now a feature that this offset thing. So what I'm going to do, wow, that looks big. So those blocks of bioflux, I've done 8 of them over on this side. I'm going to do another 8 of them over this side. So we're going to end up with 16 of them. I don't see how more bioflux is a problem. Maybe it's a problem setting up all of the farms. And the point is, I'm dealing with kind of this bioflux as an independent factory that's just kind of blomped on top of the other factory. So everything that we produce in here is going to come down the middle. I don't want to kind of bring stuff down and have to interact with this because nothing lines up very well. So everything that I'm going to need, everything good is going to have to come down the middle. Spoilage is going to come down here, across and down. And I think I'm going to build a railway down here and re-engineer this over tight to it. I am very this bus on this that I'm leaving here, this bus on the right hand side of this path, there's a lot of potential things that I could need to get in and out of here, and I'm just nervous about confining myself with a little bit too few space. So if I bring the path down here and move this across, that's going to give me loads of space. I've still got some other bits and pieces to do. Sulfur, sulfuric acid, coal. I didn't really appreciate that I would need coal, but if I want rockets in my perimeter wall, then I need explosives, and therefore I need coal. So the plan just keeps growing. Anyway, so that's kind of how things are working out base wise. There's kind of like 2 bases, one that's south of this line and one that's north of it, and they don't interact very well. But most of the trains are needed for bioflux. So as long as it all kind of functions and fits together, I think it's really just these paths. It's really just this one junction that's annoyed me. And I suppose trying to think about how I would fix this junction in the future has annoyed me also, because I don't have a plan. I don't have a fix. This stuff is just so unnegotiable. Right, anyway, plans going forward. We need to build this other half over here. I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to re-engineer this. So we're going to have to do the iron down here and steel and stuff. So it's not going to be a direct copy of this, but I'm going to re-engineer the iron and the copper to be a little bit more elegant within this new grid spacing that I'm planning for. This was just kind of in no man's land. And then just work my way back down to the bottom. This is where I'm going to put all of the juicy good stuff. Circuit boards, pentapod eggs. We've got bioflux up here. I was thinking, well, maybe surely the best place for pentapod eggs is up here. But if I want to use those pentapod eggs for other things like biochambers, and I might need a few legendary biochambers to make this work, to squeeze a few of the numbers a bit better, then it would make sense to have, I don't want to start shifting iron plate, landfill, green circuit boards, and all of the qualities involved with that all the way up here. So we're just going to bring the bioflux all the way down, pentapod's down here, something. That bioflux has a long time to spoil. So we've got some time to manipulate it. We don't necessarily have to be as critical with it as we are with the nutrients and the cracked fruits. But the actual next thing I need to be working on is Fulgora. We have now produced enough legendary recyclers to be able to upgrade this main part of the factory. That will give us 2.5 times more we've got than what we're getting at the moment, which is a big upgrade. That's something I want to take on. We also got some problems. I don't know whether we've got some problems yet. We've got some problems here that I need to fix. We're producing too much holmium ore, and I haven't got enough production of the holmium plate. So I mean, it's a good problem really. I just need to set up more holmium plate production, and that should address this problem. But increasing everything by 2.5 times, that's going to have some effects, and that might cause some more throughput issues. So this is something I'm going to have to keep an eye on, and it might be that I come here and upgrade and spend a few hours here just making sure that everything is okay. So yeah, that's the next thing. We're going to get to here, and then once we've got fixed up on Fulgora, we can finish up on Gleba. Not necessarily finish up. There's still so much to do. Continue on Gleba. So, every now and then, I get an idea in my head, a thought pops in, and I kind of feel like I'm compelled to build it. Regardless of whether I need it, want it, or even can really even sustain it. I'm pretty sure with enough productivity modules I can squeeze quite a lot of copper and iron out of the processes that I've got. And plastic, to be honest. I think I can squeeze a lot out. So I think I might just be able to justify what I've built here. But that wasn't really kind of the point. The point was I had this idea and I just had to build it. So the idea is this. We've got green, red and blue circuit boards. And if we treat them all as one kind of process, then we have only got 3 inputs. You know, that the iron plate, the copper plate, the plastic that I just mentioned, which I think I'm going to be able to sustain and push out quite a lot of. I think the numbers look good. So if we can engineer a good block of factory, then we are just dealing with 3 inputs, 3 things coming in. That's not rocket science. I mean, we are dealing with slightly more than that. So we've got those 3 inputs, but we've got 5 different qualities of them. And then 1 and 2 dot, we've got multiple belts of each. So we've got like, I don't know, 20 conveyor belts we've got to manage. And we've also got sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid is just a pipe. You know, all things considered, I reckon I can get a single pipe from anywhere to anywhere in this base. That's not a problem. Theoretically, might be get a bit ugly. That's by the by. Right. So, in my mind, if I engineer a green, red, and blue circuit board process in a good way, then I should be able. You know, we are dealing with 3 inputs. Everything should be self-contained. We should be able to do it all within the same footprint. You know, it comes about because of what happened on Vulcanus. Like, I didn't know what I was doing when on Vulcanus. So if we think about like 1 dot green circuit boards, 1 dot green circuit boards are here. 1 dot red circuit boards are here and here. 1 dot blue circuit boards are here. And all the quality of blue circuit boards are here and here. But then we've also got the quality green and red down here and here. And, you know, managing all of the logistics of all the belts for all of that stuff has been a complete pain. But it's really just a matter of bad design. So in my mind, if I can engineer this better, if I can kind of group these processes a bit better and design a better block, then I should be able to simplify a whole load of these flows. You know, if we zoom in just for a second, like we've got 2 dot copper cables here, but we've got quality in them. So every now and then it's going to spit out a different quality of cable that's not 2 dot. You know, we've got 2 dot green circuit boards, so anything that's not 2 dot, we want to leave the system. These 3 dot or 4 dot or 5 dot copper cables, they come out of the block, they come into the bus up here, into the main bus, they come across all the way to greens, they come into one of these sorting mechanisms, they come out, comes back again, all the way through the bus, down again, across, and into the units, which is like right next to it. It's a really tortured route process. So, you know, this wasn't a problem I could really address on Fulgora because we're dealing with scrap and that's a slightly different problem entirely. So when I came down to Gleba, I just feel like there's an opportunity here to build just an awesome block. So that's kind of what I've done. You know, so the idea is that we've got it's just five processes in sequence essentially. We've got 1 dot circuit boards, copper cables, green and red, 2 dot, copper, etc. 3 dot, 4 dot and 5 dot are kind of nestled in the same block. And then as we carry on over, we've got blue circuit boards and all of the scrapping for all of this stuff. So if any of these stuff overflow, it should just get automatically scrapped. So we're all here in the same system. The only I haven't built the sorting yet. So like over here, like we've got a whole load of. I'm not finished yet. Okay, hold on a second. So we're bringing in the copper cable. We're exiting out the copper cable which isn't quality. We're taking that out of the system. We're bringing it out. That's going right to the end. There's going to be some sorting stuff in here. I was just about to talk about. Then the copper cable comes back again. And back into wherever the quality needs to be. You know, this is the copper cable here. all sorted onto an individual belt, and this kind of finds its way back into the right process wherever it needs to go. None of these copper cables need to leave this block, and I'm not anticipating bringing in copper cables from somewhere else at this point, although we are going to have to bring in some copper cables from scrappage, I'm guessing, from somewhere. Probably only here though. You know, copper cables, where are we getting that from scrappage? It's only green circuit boards, and I've built the method for reintroducing those copper cables I've built within the block. This is the scrap line that I need to feed back into the system. So iron plate, those main inputs, iron plate, copper plate, and plastic, we will need to exit the block to go to somewhere else to be sorted and potentially scrapped. But copper cables, that just gets fed in. The plan is not to reintroduce any more copper cables. We are going to have somewhere else in the base where we scrap copper, and I am going to need to make copper cables in order to scrap that copper, but I'm not going to exit any of those copper cables and bring them here. I'm just going to try and keep this self-contained in one block. So I mean, in the future, the idea is that this big bit in the middle, we just delete that, move this across. I'm guessing I might need to introduce a dividing line somewhere. You know, if I was going to reuse this blueprint again in the future. Anyway, yeah, it's a nice block. I'm really happy with it. If it works, maybe how would I improve it? If it works, I don't think it really needs improvement. Anyway, I'm not 100% that I'll be able to sustain all of the flows necessary to keep all of this going, because this is all legendary. Most of it is legendary EM plants. Most of it. So there's actually quite a lot of productivity capability here. We are relying on the bacteria being reliable. That's not a certainty at this point in time. It should be. Anyway, okay, next subject. I've also been tinkering with Fulgora, because, you know, I've been trying to push this base to its absolute limit. How much stuff can we squeeze through here? I've been playing around with it. This is the maximum, I think. I've had to add in a few more belts because this wasn't enough. So I've got 8 conveyor belts plus 4. I've done the same at the north up here. And I would probably, in terms of the overall upgrade that I wanted to make, would probably, I don't know, 50-60% of the overall upgrade I wanted to make. There's just... My spreadsheet works out really, really well all of the maths involved with this block here. So we mine some scrap, we bring the scrap into the base, we process that scrap, how much scrap is there. It deals with all of that stuff really, really well. But then obviously we take some of that stuff, we make other things, like green circuit boards, and that's got to come through basically the same system. So there's a certain amount of loop going on, and copper cables and copper plates. You know, I swear this is an intentional problem the game makers have set for us. I've got the same basic problem that I've got on Falconers, which is that if the copper plate overflows, then it sends it to make copper cables down here somewhere. Those copper cables get reintroduced to this bus system and get sorted. They get sent to the circuit boards. If it overflows from there, then it gets sent to, and gets scrapped and gets turned into copper plates. And that comes back out again, gets sorted. And so it's constantly like, there's just a certain amount of flow which I can't calculate. My spreadsheet can only allow so much. And this 50 to 60% upgrade success that I've managed to achieve does not include any more scrap upgrades. This scrap right recycling productivity. This is now in this playthrough a loaded grenade. Like, if I hit this start research button and let it go through to the end, it's going to break this base. Just absolutely jam everything up. It's so on the limit. In saying all of this, you know, it might only be a partial success in terms of the upgrade, but we're making a lot of good juicy things. Like, I've got like what, 6, 12, 18, 21, I call it 22,000 legendary tier 3 modules. Like, I reckon they're coming in at like 5, 6, 7, 8 a minute. It's really, you know, anytime I need a little boost, a little kind of pick me up. I'm losing momentum. I just come over here looking at all these boxes, man. It's just so satisfying. Oh, this is like the cream of what we've been making on this whole base. Okay. So, next things, I mean, Gleba, we still got to finish off Gleba. You know, I know I've been talking about that this is probably too big, but I am going to copy it. I'm going to make 2 of these blocks. I still think we're going to be okay. I think, you know, from the numbers, it looks like we're going to be potentially making 600-700 iron and copper, and that's not a problem. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to zoom out the camera, move it across a little bit, copy in this block, and then I'm going to move the camera up here again, and we're going to try and get the factory started. So in my mind, I don't really want to get any of these factories, to be honest. I don't ever want to get them started unless they're directed at a specific process. You know, in old Factorio terms, we could turn on a factory bit by bit. You know, we wouldn't have suffer any negative consequences as a result of that. But if we turned on this bit by bit, we're going to build up spoilage, and I haven't built in any systems for the spoilage yet. There's nowhere for that to go. It's all just going to back up. So everything needs to be ready. So ultimately I wanted something to direct, you know, all of this bioflux and bioflux, because we need the plastic and the iron and the copper. That bioflux is going to feed that. I wanted somewhere for all of this to be directed at. So now I've kind of got the rest of the circuit board sorted. We can at least start making stuff. If this starts becoming useful, then it's got somewhere to go. So that's the plan. Hopefully we'll have it turned on. Get this base going. That would be really nice. Let's see if I can get there. tell you what, the perpetuality of these factories is something I'm still not used to. And it's not even just the factories themselves. It's just we were used to in old Factorio of filling up a factory with stuff, and that was always a good situation. Eventually the factory would fill up and then it would stop. But with this kind of perpetuality, with stuff kind of going on all of the time, there's like dozens of circuit networks here, dozens of different factory processes, dozens of different ways that this factory can break. And it's just really, really time consuming trying to make sure. The thing is, I boshed this factory down, really just only caring about the structure of things, how things link together. I kind of left all of the small systems as a job that I needed to do at some point in the future. And I've been running around and trying building these systems, and one of these things goes wrong, and it just brings the whole thing crashing to the ground. Well, it's not just the factory. Really what we're discussing here is seeds. Because if something breaks, then we stop processing fruits, and then we stop producing the seeds, and that's really the momentum that we need to maintain. Like the sequence of shots you've just seen of me turning this factory on is not really representative of what's actually happened. Like, there's been hours and hours and hours and hours between me getting going the starter factory, there's a little starter mechanism to get things going, and this moment where I've just turned on the iron and the copper bacteria. Because I've just been trying to accumulate seeds. I thought I would just be able to set all of this up, send the trains on their way, and everything would be fine. But we actually need so many seeds to be able to fill the factory to the point where it's actually impossible to be able to fill the factory. We've got to do it small, bit by bit, step by step. So, originally, if we look at these farms, let's turn off these spore clouds. Which one is it? That one. If we look at like a cluster of train stations here, originally what I had a system set up where we took all of the seeds from these 4 stations, we sent them to a batch of farms, and then all of those fruits came back and fed all of these trains. The problem is that because we don't have enough seeds to turn it all at once, I've got to do it one train at a time. And with the way that I built it with all of these trains linked together and all of the seeds going to all of the farms, is that some of these seeds found ways to farms which weren't being dealt with by a train. Like, I've only got this one train running, so if I send fruits to any of the other 3 trains, that's just wasted fruit. And wasted fruit is non-processed fruit, and that means no seeds. We get like a 50% extra seeds when we process those fruits. So we don't process those fruits and we stop getting the seeds and we start having a deficit. It's so annoying, these seeds. So anyway, I built the systems for all these farms, and then I had to come back and remove all those systems and redo it. Set up so that essentially each train is an individual loop all on its own. So the seeds that come from this train feed a batch of farms, and all of those farms that it feeds this one train. And that way I can kind of turn it on one train at a time. So each train is an individual loop all on its own with the seeds and the fruits. That's how it's now going. It's still slow. We're still accumulating seeds so damn slow. It's just waiting and waiting and waiting. We've got 2 of these. So I built like these 4 banks, 1, 2, 3, and 4, each fed by these stations. I've got these middle 2 banks going, making bioflux, and they're feeding the rest of the factory. I haven't turned on these other 2 yet. Obviously we've still got to build a whole load of stuff. Pentapod eggs, quality biochambers, quality there's so much. There's still so much to do. Anyway, we've turned it on. So we are making progress. Where I need to go from here, I need to continue turning this factory on. We've got to turn on the carbon fibre and the carbon and the plastic and the rocket fuel. We've got to turn on the computer circuit, the circuit boards. We've got to build. Hold on, still not done. Regardless, I'm going to call it a day here because, well, no other good reason other than the fact that it feels like a good place to end. Gleba is just sucking so much motivation. It's this perpetuality. It's this fact that the factory never turns itself off. You know, these factories are running hot all of the time. It's not just here neither, is it? You know, we did a perpetual factory on Vulcanus. That was a little bit more straightforward because it's mostly vanilla things. We also did a perpetual factory on Fulgora. That's a little bit more challenging because we've got to deal with probabilities and probabilities of probabilities. But I think this spoilage mechanic is the most dastardly of all of the challenges in this new space age. But anyway, we're going to bring it to a close. That's the end of the episode. Next episode, we're just going to bring up these last final stages in here. You know, get the rest of them all built and the science and stuff. But I've got to be honest, I'm not entirely sure where I'm going after this. You know, I had targets. You know, I had Vulcanus, I had Fulgora, I had Gleba, and I was so concentrating on the problems, the unique problems that each of those planets represents. I haven't really planned out my next step, so I do need to think about it a little bit. But anyway, well, we'll talk about it in the next episode. We're going to call it a day. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Now, if you've made it to the end of this episode, I suppose not just the end of this episode, but also, you know, you've seen this series out, then I'd like to think that you probably enjoy, you know, the content that I make. And I'll cut to the chase. I've set up a Patreon. We've got a few members. I couldn't quite work out in my head how to display it. So, you know, there's two YouTube ways that I see it. You display the names and you can spin the names. So, but we haven't got many names. So I'm just going to do both. These are all the chaps who have signed up already, chaps and chapettes. Thank you guys, legends. If you want to come and support, if you like the content and you want to support the channel, here are the deets. Yeah, that's the short version. The long version is that the only reason this channel is able to exist is because I have a proper profession. Yeah, I'm a structural engineer. I have my own business. It employs just me, and that pays for my bills. But it also allows me a lot of time, and so I've tended to use that time on hobbies. And the last few years, those hobbies have been this YouTube and Factorio. But I mean, fundamentally, thank you, email. Fundamentally, at some point, if I want this, if I'm going to have to put a lot of effort into YouTube and more effort, I suppose, long term, then this needs to contribute a lot more than the 5%-ish revenue that it gives me. I mean, we're talking brass tacks. I don't want to beat around the bush. There is a chance that at some point I might have to go and get a day job, in which case I won't have the time to be able to do this. And I don't want that to be the case. But, you know, I'm a man of the real world. If that's the world that I live in, then that's the world that I live in. I'm working on more content ideas. I've made a few screenshots of the stuff that I've built on this new space age. You know, just to get things started. These are 4K, full, the whole shebang. All free. So if you want to go and check them out, you can download them. They're all there on the Patreon. If you want to come and support me, you know where I am. Otherwise, I will see you in the next episode. I am working on a tutorial. That tutorial will probably come out first. So I will see you in that tutorial.